Uh, Good evening, everybody. So, welcome to another episode of Block and Talk by Blockchain. And today I'm extremely delighted to have with us Mr. Rachit Kumar Srivastava. Sir is the partner at ILA&C Law Firm, and he's also a counsel at TeraBlock, a blockchain company based in Singapore. And he happens to actually, funnily enough, be our first Indian guest and a legal practitioner. And it's an absolute delight for us to host him. So, thank you so much, sir. And I'd also like to introduce to everyone my co-founder, Prateek. So, welcome, sir. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you, Han. It's a pleasure to be here and be your first Indian lawyer to be on board.
No, sir, the pleasure is ours. So I think a good place to start would be, if you could tell us a bit about your background and career history up until the point where, you got exposed to the blockchain world. So all our viewers can know about a little bit about you.
So, nothing too fancy about it. I was born into a business family and my father wanted me to join the business, but and things were different back then and I didn't want to actually join him in his business. So, and interestingly, that point in time, law was coming up as a very good career option. So I eventually did law from Pune and then moved to Delhi here to start my practice. And then after completing my law, I did an year of judicial clerkship at the High Court. And then I joined ALMT Legal. It's a law firm headquartered in Mumbai. And then thereafter CAM, and now I've set up my own law firm. It's called ILA&C Law, and running that. So as of now, I advise my clients on various issues, representing them in litigation and then advising them on general corporate. Along side by side, I also advise crypto entrepreneurs in running their business and setting up their projects in India as well as globally.
Got it. Right. So the next question would be, so like obviously the next question is, so when did you first come across blockchain? How did it happen? And why did you decide that, given obviously there's a legal aspect to any field, but what sort of drew you into this space particularly?
So technology has always been interesting to me, even though I'm a lawyer and lawyers are not known to be very tech savvy. They're more into books and things like that. Of course, that needs to be there, but technology has always been interesting to me. So the first time was what I remember is I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who was equally interested in cryptocurrency back in 2014. We were discussing about cryptocurrencies and especially in particular about Bitcoin, how it is being adopted by people, and some very high number of Bitcoins are being transacted for very small value of products or maybe services back then. But interesting that currency as we know it is being replaced by something which is created by an anonymous person and being circulated all around. So that was the first time it piqued my interest. I kept reading about it and following whatever developments that have happened that were happening globally. So, and sometime in 2017, another friend of mine, he was operating trading, it was a trading bot of cryptocurrency exchange that he was operating. And the first time he asked me to draw up an agreement for him, for his users, and also to draw up certain privacy policies and terms and conditions for his users. That is the first maybe assignment that I did for a client. you could say a client, but he was a friend. And therein, as in the first thing where I used legal knowledge into into cryptocurrencies.
Great. So that's really wonderful to know. 2014 is quite back then, you know. I mean, that's like for you to be exposed then is quite interesting. And yeah, so Pratik.
Yeah. So yeah, firstly, good evening, Rachit sir. So I was
Right.
actually curious to know about your time in TeraBlock. So you were a part-time legal counsel at TeraBlock. So could you please tell us more about what exactly TeraBlock is, and what problem is it aiming to solve, and what role do you play as a legal counsel?
So Pratik, just a correction there. I'm not a part-time legal counsel. I was a legal counsel with TeraBlock,
Oh,
advising them. But
my
now
bad.
I am off of general counsel.
Oh,
Of general counsel of TeraBlock, it is yet to be announced and yet to be posted on LinkedIn. But I'm off.
Congratulations. So congratulations about that.
yes.
Thank you, thank you. So I haven't joined them full time, but I'm providing external support as a legal counsel. My firm does all the research. We do all the advisory. We draft agreements for them. We draft policies for them, and also handhold them with all the legal challenges that they may face in India or anywhere abroad, wherever they are planning to expand.
Yeah. So I just had another question about TeraBlock only. So we've been following TeraBlock as even we are interested in this space. So TeraBlock, it seems to have quite a lot of investors, and relating to that, what are the factors investors look for in a project before investing it in this particular space?
So, Pratik, that is a very that is a question that has several aspects to it. But what investors should look at is the team, that if the team is promising, because investors, if we talk about the seed investors,
Mhm.
they should look at the team, they should look at the project or the idea they're going to execute, and of course if there is a cryptocurrency or a token associated with it, what is the utility of the token? So if your token is not going to go anywhere, there is no utility around it, so the project may fail to
Yeah.
generate any revenues,
Mhm. Correct. So if
right?
I,
So
sorry, no, please, so complete
no,
and
no,
then I.
no, please go on. I
So
was
my
only ending
so
it.
so to take a step back, so could you just briefly explain because like we did not mention what TeraBlock does. So basically, could you just tell us briefly what it is that TeraBlock does, and how does it operate, just so that we're clear on that.
So, our TeraBlock has just very recently launched its chain uh, multi-chain bridge, where
Okay.
users can transact between different chains. Okay, that is one product that they have come up with, and they have tied up with certain international projects as well to for them to use it, their users to use it and transact between different chains. So there are chains, several chains. Polygon is there, then Ethereum is there, Solana is there. All these chains are there. So when users want to transact between the chains, they use these bridges.
Mhm.
So TeraBlock has just launched a bridge, a multi-chain bridge, and TeraBlock is also working on their own decentralized exchange, where they will have a unique. If you've heard of indexes,
Mhm.
it's more like a club of you club several cryptocurrencies, and users can choose those indexes,
Mhm.
and basis those indexes they can earn profits or trade in cryptocurrencies. So basis their risk profile, they choose their index, and that is how they get their returns.
So it's
So
sort of similar to a traditional financial product that we currently have,
right,
but for the crypto markets. Very interesting, because now we're seeing more of that happening, especially since 2021 in this space.
Like your Nifty 50 is an index.
Correct.
Right? It has certain number of securities, and if people interested in investing into the shares, those are there in Nifty 50, then they get the returns accordingly when all of the shares make progress.
Correct. Correct. So the next question that we have, and this is closer home, but we'll start from where TeraBlock is. So TeraBlock, as if for our viewers, it's a company incorporated in Singapore, and in general, Singapore is a pretty popular destination, getting a lot of crypto investments, and a lot of companies are being incorporated there because of the fact that it's a crypto friendly jurisdiction. So in your opinion and experience, what would you say are other jurisdictions apart from Singapore that you see that hold promise and will do well in the coming future?
So, like you rightly said, Singapore being pioneer in bringing in crypto regulations, so they are attracting a lot of entrepreneurs. That is one, because they are friendly to these entrepreneurs, and they provide an atmosphere where projects can grow and new technologies, new ideas can be incubated. So Singapore being one, there is UAE that is coming up well. So UAE has several regulators. ADGM is there, DMCC is there. Both of them have their separate set of regulations for cryptocurrencies. Then there is DTEC as well within UAE. So these are three different regulators that I can remember offhand, but there are several others as well within UAE. And then if one wants to enter the EU market, the popular choice is Estonia, Lithuania, Switzerland now. Some are going to Poland as well.
Okay.
And US market is a different ballgame altogether. It's heavy on compliance. So once people have everything in place, then they dare to enter US market.
Correct.
Yeah. So
and,
yes, sir. Please, sir.
And of course, there is Africa, there's South America. So there is no regulation per se. Countries are still hanging between somewhere close to what India is doing as of now. But yes, people specifically are adopting it, and they are showing a lot of interest, although governments are yet to take a call on that. On what is to be done with cryptocurrencies. Government are yet undecided.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So that naturally actually, brings us to the next question, which is, the Indian scenario, because there's been so much happening the past few months. So described how developing robust frameworks with respect to this space. So we know that India has, delayed its crypto bill for quite some time and is looking to make amendments to it. So, what do you think is the most important? What do you think is most important for India to get right in its legislation? And we have a high number of people with crypto adoption and relatively talented developer pool. So, how can we ensure we position ourselves as you can say leaders in this space? And what else, anything else that you feel is important from a policy perspective?
So not only about India, in fact, for any government globally, the concern should be a three-pointer. It should be a three-pointer concern for any government, that how do you control that there is no terrorist funding, there is no illegal use of the money earned from cryptocurrencies. That is one. Number two is how your public money is secured. Say you and I are investing, how the government can ensure that our investments are safe. Okay, that is number two. Number three is obviously for the government's its own interest. How will you tax these transactions? What will be your fiscal policy? That should be the concern for any government, be it India or be it anywhere in the world. Safe, secure, and then how do you tax all of this? So India should come up with a policy where these three things are taken care of. Also provide an atmosphere, maybe a sandbox where you can test these projects, implement certain ideas, and see how all this can coexist without hampering our own economy, our own Indian economy of the rupee. So this should be the concern, because all these if Singapore be taken as an example, Singapore has come up with a sandbox wherein they have given out regulations and saying that uh, what is to be termed as securities, what is to be termed as tokens, and how they want to regulate it, how they want the compliance to be done. We can take cues from the jurisdictions all across.
Yeah.
And
right, so. And I completely, I love your three-step approach. I think it's a very simple thing. Anybody can, relate to it and should keep in mind. It makes a lot of sense. And like you mentioned right now, the securities aspect of like, referring to Singapore, I think that is another very current, tricky topic around the globe. I mean, like you mentioned, US as well. US is compliance heavy also because their securities test is so bamboozling for people, given its wide ambit, the Howey test, anything can be a security. And most projects currently, if we go by that definition, including NFT projects that we see are with like so much hype and, being offered and people buying into it, especially for citizens there, it's definitely, I would say, running a huge risk of being an unregistered security as per their regulation. And it is, like you said, important to get right in even in our context, definitely, because you need, when you have exchanges, they are a parallel exchange to a stock market, but it would make sense for example, the SEBI to have some overview and regulation on that aspect of things. Maybe, for example, relating to, now I'll relate two concepts here: securities and money laundering. Because when you see money laundering, you see that most regulators, like RBI has their own specific set of money laundering guidelines. So does the SEBI have its own specific set of money laundering guidelines. The Financial Action Task Force, which is the global body setting all of these standards, they themselves are, have actually in their recent guidance in October come up with a good comprehensive set. Like, it's not perfect, but it's a good working framework of defining, for example, what a VASP is, a virtual asset service provider. So now, if, for example, we have, I'm not saying that this is per se right, but just as an example, we have the SEBI issuing out licenses to crypto exchange as VASPs, and as a result they would be mandated to comply with certain money laundering frameworks. I think that would definitely be a very good step and sort of address the main concern, because this is, like you said, the main concern for governments and even, like, citizens. Because, like, if I'm putting my money into something like this asset class, I want to make sure it's not tainted by illicitness in any manner. So
right.
that, I definitely think you raised a very important point. So yeah, please go on.
Just to add to it, don't be surprised when if the government announces SEBI to be the regulator. It's
Well,
in the discussion with the policymakers. They are in discussion. They may appoint SEBI as the regulator. This is what is anticipated.
that would definitely, I mean, it would be the right step in the sense that they're not banning it. It's definitely
Right.
miles ahead from that and helps everybody. And we can obviously work around that once it happens. But that if that happens, very exciting stuff to look forward to, definitely.
So banning, Banning is not right. Okay, if you look at globally, so China, Afghanistan, Nepal, Pakistan, these are the countries who have banned it. A few who have banned it. India has to decide: uh, do we want to follow the lines of China, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Nepal, or we want to do certain, or do we want to do things differently? And in order to compete with China, that is what the global debate is, that India is competing with China. In order to compete with them, do you follow their line or do you do things differently? We have to take the call.
Absolutely. Absolutely so. So, then like we'll move on to the next question, right? Because now we have heard a lot happening in 2021 and even into 2022. Each day there's something or the other that's springing up in this space, because it just moves up at a goes at rocket speed. Some new innovation
Right.
is happening on a daily basis. So last year I would say NFTs were the big hype. DeFi, the total value locked went exponentially increased by more than, I think, 300-400%. And just for everybody who does not know what DeFi is, DeFi basically stands for decentralized finance. So it is how we have traditional finance, borrowing and lending, taking loans, taking insurance, and such financial products currently. And so please add on if you think that I miss on something, and if you can add anything better. Currently, these processes are heavy with a lot of middlemen and more intermediaries, plus a lot of paperwork, therefore making it a long drawn process with more added costs. With DeFi, what happens is it becomes peer to peer. So if I want to take a loan, I can take it directly from Pratik or Sir, and in return I sort of lock my crypto with the platform that I'm using, and in the event that I default, that automatically gets sort of liquidated. So essentially the benefit of peer to peer happens, and of course there are many other aspects to it, but the essential benefit is it makes it directly between me and the other party, and it reduces the costs and makes it very instantaneous and efficient. So that's why we've seen such a huge adoption, among other things, of DeFi. So given that context of DeFi and NFTs exploding, so how do you see the space evolve in 2022 and beyond? And what use cases of the blockchain do you think are hold the most potential, given this preamble?
Uh, I mean, Ahan, to add to it, so DeFi is actually what was needed. Okay, so this whole idea of blockchain and cryptocurrencies started with people wanting a decentralized economy,
Mhm.
right? Uh, so what the glaring contradiction, that decentralized money truly should come with decentralized services. That is how it came into being.
Mhm.
So when we say that there should be cryptocurrencies and it is decentralized and all of it, there is no third party, there's nothing controlling it. But when we look at cryptocurrency exchanges, these major exchanges, it is all again becoming centralized, right? So peer to peer came into being only with the idea that, okay, decentralized, the cryptocurrency world being decentralized without any centralized agency or like a bank or a trusted party,
Mhm.
the services should also be decentralized. So that is how peer-to-peer transactions came into being. And the way I see it evolving, we are yet to see. It is quite interesting how the adoption is going to happen. But I'm a firm believer that we all governments, all regulators across the globe should come up with something where this can coexist, because it may not seem as a problem here in India as of now, the adoption, but think of economies where their actual sovereign currencies are getting devalued by the day.
Correct.
Right? So people are holding their money in cryptocurrencies, which is actually appreciating.
Correct. Correct.
Say, for example, if in maybe I'm only giving an example, if in Zimbabwe you earn $1 million, million Zimbabwean currency today, it helps you survive for a month. Tomorrow, the same the currency in millions is not worth your survival even for 15 days. It's getting devalued by the day. And if those people, if people of Zimbabwe are holding cryptocurrencies, maybe for example Bitcoin, and they convert it that very day, I mean, it's appreciating. It's helping them to sustain themselves.
Right.
So such adoption has to be there. It is, I can't predict, but at least I would want in some adoption to take place in India. And at least there should be an environment where the cryptocurrencies, the technology, blockchain, and our own rupee coexist.
Right. Absolutely.
Yes,
So having a mix of, um, you know, like a hybrid version where you can access both crypto payments and integrating it with fiat payments would obviously be a very ideal scenario. And like there are some companies not in our jurisdiction that are doing this, but yeah, it's very important that the most important thing that needs to happen is you have to make a crypto transaction as easy as it is to do a fiat transaction today. Now today you have to, if you really want to, you have to open like doing through a centralized exchange is easy, but if you want to really store your crypto properly and open your wallet, it's a little technical process with some learning curve. So I feel like definitely from a consumer perspective, the next very important problem to be solved is to make it as easy as, for example, a UPI transaction, and then it would make gain more adoption, especially in our jurisdiction. Yeah, please, Prateek, please.
yeah. So as Ahan already said, like there's so much happening in the space every single day. Like every day you actually end up reading something new. And just when you think that you have, a good amount of knowledge on this topic, there's be something new that you wouldn't have heard of before. So as someone who's a lot more experienced than us, so what do you think are the good sources of information for people like us who are interested in this space to keep up to date with the current happenings in the realm of blockchain?
Uh, Guys, for you, I would suggest please start following those regulators and some influencers that are there. Uh, like there are a lot of people. Uh, like you have. I'm sorry, I'm missing the name. There are blogs. You have Medium. You can access to a lot of database on Medium. You can go to US parliamentary discussions that are going on. You can access that data. Uh, you can you can go to Mass's website in Singapore. You can access data from there, read up regulations, what is happening around it. And obviously, uh, there are uh, there are other sources as well, for lawyers particularly. You can go to ADGM's regulations, download the regulations from ADGM's website and read about it. Download the regulations from DMCC, you get the knowledge of it. Because bloggers, I can't suggest what bloggers will help you. But these are some good sources from the core itself, from the policy makers, that will give you a perspective how the regulators are thinking and how the law should evolve and how the law will evolve in India, because India, anyway, it cannot be absolutely different from what they are doing.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So that's
Yes.
definitely important. And like you mentioned, UAE, UAE in general seems to also have a decent body of legislation, not just the free zones, but even like, for example, I was reading Bahrain's legislation, and in terms of
Right.
especially the how does the holisticness of the topics covered, right from investor protection to obviously money laundering to licensing. uh, like you said, the key concerns are like, when you said money laundering and the public money should be safe. So again, I found that to be quite a interesting piece of legislation, because investor protection again has been a sort of another gray area which some regulators have spoken about, others have not yet addressed in, like, one place. It may be in through papers and discussions, but that was another thing that I definitely found interesting. So
Right.
we are now at the tail end of our podcast. So, we like to end it on a lighter note, and, just to get to know our guests better, and so on. So I have a bunch of questions for you, which are general in nature. So starting with, what is your favorite sport?
So, favorite sport being cricket. I play cricket uh, with friends here in Delhi. Uh, it's almost a weekend affair, and uh, can't say that I follow it.
Mhm. Right.
I play, and that's it.
Correct. I was just about to ask you what are your sentiments about Virat Kohli.
No, I'm not following it.
Right. No, and that's nice. So, like you said, cricket is a weekend affair for you. So that's one thing you do outside work. But when you are not playing cricket and not practicing, so what is it that you like to do? Just what do you like to do outside of that?
I like to travel. I travel a lot.
Mm.
Wherever there's any free time, I take up travel. I drive. I maybe fly to some place,
Mhm.
and I like to spend my time traveling.
That's nice.
That's nice. So now, I mean, I'm assuming that you've been at home for quite, I
Hmm.
mean, at for some time. So when you get the next chance, where would you like to go?
Uh, so I've been planning for a very long time. I've been wanting to go to Dubai. So it's work plus for both, as in work and vacation as well. But I've not been able to go. But next thing I would do is go to Dubai.
Right, definitely. And Dubai also is a crypto, it's becoming a crypto center and hub 100%. There are so many events and like many companies, so makes sense. And
Yep.
lastly, sir, uh, if you had to, because there's a lot of people that are now, more than let's say 3 years ago, there are a lot more influencers and celebrities or figures in the crypto space and blockchain space. So if you wanted and had the chance to meet one person, who would it be and why?
Uh, so have you guys heard about Andreas? Andreas?
Mm.
Yes,
So
Antonopoulos.
yes, yes.
Correct.
Uh, so he's been pretty interesting. I mean, not doesn't give any gyan on legal knowledge
Hmm.
or how to apply your how to apply law to cryptocurrencies. Nothing about that, but he gives very good insights about the technology, how it operates, what may be the future of it. And I'm sure you must have read a lot of books. He's written a lot of books on crypto, blockchain itself and the use case and a lot of it around it.
Hmm.
So Andres is one person that I would like to meet sometime and have a discussion with him and what more he has to say on cryptocurrencies and blockchain.
Correct. Correct. So absolutely. He's one of the early educators. He's made
He's
a
an authority. He's an
100%.
authority.
Definitely. And the amount of effort he has put to educate people as to, why should you be concerned or care about, cryptocurrency or Bitcoin, starting from Bitcoin. I'll have to say it's been a very, very important contribution to a lot of people's learnings, including mine. I'm still learning each day, but of course, he's, like you said, an authority to definitely start from, and one another good source of information, as we asked you previously, 100% to refer to. So with that note, sir, I would like to thank you so much for taking your time out from your schedule and agreeing to speak with us. I'm sure I speak on behalf of both of us. It was an absolute pleasure discussing with you, and gaining a lot of new perspectives, and just having a very holistic conversation around this space. And I hope that India, we are all obviously going to wait and watch, but I definitely am excited for the future of how it plays out in our country. And once again, sir, it was a pleasure having you on board with us.
Right. Pleasure was mine as well. And Ahan, before we end this, I would like to make a suggestion to your listeners that they should, if they are early into blockchain and they want to learn about it, please read this book called Internet of Money by Andreas. It's a nice book. It's a very short, and it's more like a lot of information has been picked up from his speeches and then put in the book. Okay. So that is one thing that at least beginners should read. Right. If you're already into it, then maybe go for mastering Bitcoin or Ethereum. Those are other books that dive deep into the technology. But Internet of Money is good for beginners.
Absolutely.
That's for your listeners, not for you guys. You guys should read more about law and more on regulations, how they are going to come into it.
Absolutely, sir. But
yes,
I feel like even more, it's lawyers of, especially in this space, would have to be acquainted with both. Like, of course, we'll come from the regulatory policy and contracts perspective, but I mean, anyone getting in the space would have to understand what Bitcoin, why Bitcoin, that start there and then of course expand. But thank you so much for the suggestion. So it's
no, exactly. In fact, lawyers should also know about the technology, because you can't be telling your clients only law and not understand what they are saying.
Correct.
Right? In order to understand, in order to be a lawyer or an advisor in cryptocurrency space, one needs to understand the technology. And obviously, our clients, you have to speak their language, the language that they understand, because business has to thrive, and your advice should be to help business grow.
Yes.
You can't tell anyone that, no, you can't do it.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be your advice as a lawyer. You should understand the technology and then find out ways how it can be done.
Right. Absolutely. Otherwise, you lose your client.
Right.
Yeah. So Prateek, anything you have to say?
You've actually covered everything, but yeah, even I had the same thing. Whatever I wanted to say, Ahan had actually said it before. But it was really a very insightful session, and there's a lot that even I learned today, and especially the way you explain the policy perspective, what to expect. That's something I didn't read before, and that's in the future. Even if I have to explain it to someone, I would definitely use that that you use that methodology of explaining. Yeah. And we definitely look forward to having more such sessions with you like we had today.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Most welcome, guys.
All right. I'll just stop the recording.
Thank you, sir.
1 second.